and solidify modifier and increase the thickness a little bit inside, and they will cover this nicely. Hey everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. Today we are going to create this cute fun astronaut animation, and I really hope you will enjoy this one. And if you do, please don't forget to leave that like, it will really help me. And if you're new around here, hit that subscribe. And let's now jump right into empty Blender file. And first of all, let's just delete everything. Let's just drag a selection, press X and delete all the default objects. And we'll start modeling our character. Now this will be very simple stylized character build, and we'll only use poly modeling tools, so no sculpting. So this should be pretty easy to follow even if you're a beginner. So let's press Shift A and we'll start by mesh and circle, and let's reduce the number of vertices to something like 6. That should be enough because we'll be using subdivision modifier later. And now just tap into the edit mode, press S and scale it down a little bit. There'll be start of a leg, and then press G, then X and move it to the side a little bit. Now let's press 1 on a numpad to look from the front. And now let's press E to extrude and press Z to lock it on a Z axis. And now press S to scale it up. And now we're gonna slant this a little bit. So press Ctrl, Alt and Shift and S. That's a little bit handful shortcut. And then you can press Y to enable Y axis and just slant the whole thing like this. And we can press G additionally to move it to the side a little bit. And now let's just select these 4 vertices here. And let's go to the modifiers panel and let's add mirror modifier right here and enable clipping. And we can press E, then X and just merge it here in the middle, confirm, then hold Alt and select this loop right here. Let's look from the front and we can press E to extrude, then press S, Z and 0 so it's flat. And let's just continue by pressing E and let's go this way. And now let's click here, select this vertex, hold Shift, select these 3. Let's look from the side by pressing 3 on a numpad. And let's extrude it a little bit up, just like that. And now once again, add a little bit of an angle here. And we'll do the same here in the back. So select these, extrude, and then press E again to extrude, just like this. So this will ultimately give us 6 sides to, create hand there. So let's now select these 4 on top, press F to fill, and these as well. Now before we extrude the hands, let's look from the side and check the profile, because this is too flat, it looks like the astronaut Ada playing here. So let's enable X-ray view, and here we can better see the shape of the body. So let's give this some shape, select these 4 vertices, press S then Y and scale them out like this. We can scale these as well. And generally you want the torso to be a little bit tilted back and the pelvis to be a little bit tilted forward. So let's do that. Let's select these vertices right here, press R to rotate them. And now here we're gonna rotate to the other side, and you can see this suddenly feels a little bit more natural as a body. If you feel like this is too fast for you or you don't understand some core concepts, make sure to check out my courses. I carefully designed them to take you from beginner skills through low poly illustration all the way to full character illustration, textured environments and much more. And I build the courses as creative projects, each with its own style. And every time there's a new technique or something needs explaining, we stop for a while and you get an in-depth explanation. But in the end, you still get a full project result. So if you're interested, please check out the link in the description. And we can just move it around in relation to the legs here, something like this. And now we can alt click this loop on the side that we created, and we'll use a handy add-on here. So go edit preferences, add-ons, and search for loop tools, and just check the box right here, close the preferences. And now if you right click, you will see the loop tools add-on right there, and you can choose circle, and they will take all these vertices and organize them in a perfect circle. So now we can just look from the side by pressing 3 on the numpad and press R to rotate and maybe scale this inside a little bit. Now let's create a shoulder here. So we'll select only these vertices right here, press 1 on a numpad for a front view and just extrude a little bit. And now just select these vertices, enable auto merge. So the vertices that will meet will merge together. Press G twice and slide this right there. And now we can alt click this loop again, you will see this is what we get as selection, and we can extrude this tiny bit. Press S, then X and 0, and R to rotate, and S to scale a little bit. So this is what we'll get. And now we can play with the proportion. You can make the shoulders a little bit larger. Here we can go a little bit inside, and this is what we get here. So now we can press E and extrude the hands like this. Extrude once more, make them a little bit wider so it's nice and stylized, and do something like this. Let's make them a little bit shorter maybe. Here we can maybe try to round it out. And I think we're getting somewhere here. Maybe here we can go more towards the outside. I'll give this more of that like a bean body shape right there. Okay, and maybe we can go closer here. And let's press Ctrl R and create a loop right here. Slide it down and press S, then Z and 0. Now we can extrude some legs. So just go for face select by pressing 3. Select this face, hold Shift, select the other one, and press E, then Y, and extrude this towards the front. And of course we'll modify this a little bit. So right now we can press 1 for vertex select, select these 3 in the front, press G twice and slide them up a little bit. And now we can press Ctrl R, create a cut here in the middle, and now slide the one in the front, and press G, then Z, and push this one up. And of course here we have a hole. If you disable X-ray, you will see that. So alt click the loop and press F to fill. The end gone would be fine right here. And right now this is quite enough. So let's figure out the head and hands. So first of all, I want to continue with some neck here. So let's go for face select right here. Select this one, press I to inset, and then press B to enable boundary. So we can do an inset like this. Press G, then Z, and move this up. And now press 2 for edge select, select this one, press G, then X, and move it closer so it's roughly rectangular here. And now we can select this face, press X, and delete. They'll create this opening right there, and you know, a little bit of the neck right there. We can even maybe push it a little bit higher up. So we're going for this shape right here from neck towards the shoulder and towards the hand. Now let's figure out the way how to create an easy hand, and I won't do any fingers here because I imagine the astronaut has gloves. So let's select these 4 vertices, hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. Now tab out, and let's press Shift A, and we'll add a cube here. Tab into the edit mode and press S, scale it down, and then press S, then Z, scale on the Z axis as well, and just press G, then X, and move it away. So there'll be our base for the hand. We can make it a little bit smaller maybe, and then let's select these 4 vertices and scale this up a little bit. And now press Ctrl R, create a cut right there, and select these 2 vertices, press G, then Y, and move them like this. And now press 3 for face select, select this one. Let's look from the front, and we can just hold Ctrl and right click here to extrude. Press S to make it smaller, and then Ctrl and right click again to do another extrusion, and again make it a little bit smaller. And here we can make a thumb, really stylized one. I think this will be enough for the style we are going for here. Now we can press slash to isolate to local view and try to make something out of this. So press Ctrl R, create one more cut here. It's because we need 6 faces right there. And first of all, we can give this some more shape. So let's push this up a little bit. Maybe here, create like a palm. And here, press 3 for face select. Select these 2, press X and delete them. 2 for edge select, select this edge. And now right click and choose circle on the loop tools. And that again will kind of create this perfect circle for you. And we can try to shift things around a little bit to make this, you know, a little bit nicer. But I think overall this will work just fine. Now we can press slash again on the numpad to exit the isolation mode, and we can try to match the hand here. And I think it's almost enough. Now you can press R, then Y, X twice to kind of rotate this, and you will see we can create this nice connection there. So let's hold Shift, select the body, and press Ctrl J to join. And now if we tap into the edit mode, we can snap this one by one. So I want to keep this perfect circle on hand, so I will snap the hand vertices on top of that. So let's go here and change the snapping to vertex, and let's keep the auto merge on. And now select the vertices one by one, press G, and by holding Ctrl we can choose to snap, and if you do that, the auto merge will take care of the rest, and you can just go ahead and snap these all around just like that. Perfect. And now it's all about the scale. Maybe the hands are a little bit too large, so let's select them and maybe make them a little bit smaller here. Maybe the hand can be a little bit closer, so we're really going for that stylized chunky look here. And now we can exit the X-ray view, and let's take care of the head. So just select these two vertices on top, hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. That will place it right there in the middle, so we can tab out. And let's create a sphere. And most of the time I use quad sphere to create spherical objects, but here I will use the UV sphere. So let's press Shift A and choose UV sphere, and that's because the geometry of the UV sphere is exactly what we need here. And we can reduce the segments to something like 24 and these to 12, so it's not so dense. And now just tabbing to the edit mode and scale it down. And we don't need to be afraid of this, we can make the head pretty large, so tab out, press G then Z and move it up here. And maybe even larger, like this. Okay, and now in the object mode, let's press R then Y and 90 degrees. And that's the rotation we need, because now we're able to cut out the visor very easily. So tab into the edit mode. And to make things easier, we can go to the front view by pressing 1 on a numpad, enable X-ray view, select everything on the left side, press X and delete vertices. And now in the modifiers panel, let's add the mirror modifier with clipping. But here we want to disable the X and enable Z because we rotated the thing in the object mode. And now let's just go for a face select by pressing 3 on a numpad. Let's disable the X-ray view. And now let's just pick a selection. Let's just drag it like this, and by holding Shift we can add to the selection and just create a selection like this, maybe one more row just like that, so the visor is really large. And now we can just press P and separate the selection into a new object. And now tab out, let's select that new object, tab into the edit mode, press A, and we can press Alt S and kind of scale it inside like this. Tab out, select the helmet, and now we can add modifier and choose generate and solidify modifier and increase the thickness a little bit inside, and that will cover this nicely. Now if you want, you can tab into the edit mode and do some adjustments, like for example selecting these faces right here, making them larger and extruding them to make things, you know, a little bit more interesting. But I think all in all, for a stylized astronaut, this will work just fine. And I think we can push the head a little bit forward on Y-axis, so press G then Y and move it right here. And we can adjust the neck right there. So tab into the edit mode, go for vertex select by pressing 1, select these two, press G then Z and move it up. And now the fun part, tab out and press Ctrl 2 to add subdivision modifier. And this is too blobby, so we'll need to adjust some things. First of all, I think we messed some normals right there, so tabbing to the edit mode, press A and Shift N to recalculate them, and you will see now the whole mesh will have normals correct. And we can now create some additional details. So first of all, I want the chest to be a little bit more visible, so press K, click here and do something like this, for example. Let's confirm. And now we can select this edge, press G then Y and move it a little bit outside, all like this. And now we can press Ctrl R and kind of compress this geometry right here. And I don't want to leave the large part right there, so press Ctrl R here again. Let's look on the side, enable X-ray and go for vertex select by pressing 1, and we can adjust the placement of these so they feel a little bit more natural and the flow of geometry is a little bit nicer. And maybe we can move this a little bit higher up. Okay, I quite like this so far. So down here we can make this transition down a little bit sharper, so press Ctrl R, create a loop cut there, and press E to align, with the bottom and just place the loop cut right there. I think this will work just fine. And if you want, you can press Ctrl R right here, confirm, press S then Z and 0. And now we can create one more and scale it up. And one more from the top, so we have some separation, you know, from the boots. And we can do the same thing right here with the gloves, so we can create a sharper transition there. And this one can be larger, go a little bit inside like this. And a little bit sharper on the outside as well. And I think this whole part can be a little bit larger. Okay, and now let's just right click, shade smooth, and let's select the helmet, and we are going to add some bevel modifier. So let's do just that. And here in the geometry, we'll change this to arc, so we have nicer corners, increase the segments to 2, and just reduce this just like that. And now we can press Ctrl 1 to add one level of subdivision, right click, shade smooth, so we have this nice smooth helmet. And here we can just press Ctrl 1 to add that smoothness, right click, shade smooth. But you can see due to the subdivision modifier, there is some gaps here, so you can just press S and make the thing a little bit larger right there until it touches. And then press Ctrl A and apply that scale. Now let's finish this up. Maybe he can have a little bit more rounded belly right there. Maybe this can go a little bit back. And here we can do something like this, not too much, because we don't want to create breasts, we just want chest there. Okay, right now let's maybe position this a little bit lower, and let's create something like a belt. So select the body, tap into the edit mode, and we can just go for face select, alt click this loop right here, press Shift D to duplicate, right click to release, and P enter to separate the selection. Tab out, select the new object, and we can adjust the proportions. So press 1 for vertex select, press G twice to slide it down a little bit, and here press G twice and hold Alt to be able to slide it up. Maybe here we can go a little bit closer, here further away. And now press A, Alt E, and extrude along normals. And in the vertex mode, press Ctrl I to inset, press X and delete those inside faces. And now we can alt click this inner loop and hold Alt Shift and select this one as well. Press S, then Shift Z to scale it on X and Y axis. And now make this a little bit sharper, so Ctrl R to create a loop cut right here. So he has like a belt or something. And you can, place different things here. So you can shift right click, place cursor there, create a cube, tab into the edit mode, make it smaller, and make it match the body position right here. Add some bevel, so it looks like the astronaut has some equipment. But all in all, this is all I will do right now. And now normally I would create an armature to kind of make this into a fully functional rig. But this is a little bit out of the scope of this tutorial, and I have like a full 6-hour course on creating character just like this, the shaman character, on my website polygonrunway.com. So if you didn't check it out yet, go ahead and go to polygonrunway.com, and there are 2 characters in a single course that you can create from scratch using just a simple poly modeling tools, no sculpting there. So what I'll do right now is select the body, apply the mirror modifier right here, click the arrow and choose apply. And now we'll go to the sculpting mode. So let's just switch to sculpt mode. And there's very handy tool, let me expand this. There's very handy tool to pose your sculpt. So we can help ourselves by, few simple sculpting tools to move the mesh around in a very natural way. So press F to make this larger, confirm. And now you can see we are able to kind of grab this and move it around, but I don't want this to be destructive. So instead of the subdivision, let's just remove that and let's add generate and multi-resolution. And let's choose subdivide once and then second time. So this will give us same result as the subdivision modifier, but we can sculpt on this without modifying the original mesh. So we can kind of position this around, and now if you tab out, you can still see the original mesh is untouched. So yeah, let's just kind of try to find some position. Nothing too crazy, because I want this astronaut to kind of like just fly around in space. So he'll be just kind of rotating around and moving. But yeah, something like this. Maybe this hand looks a little bit unnatural. So we can use something like a drag tool or grab tool and kind of shift things around here to compress it. And then again, the pose tool to maybe do something like this. And now again, we can go back to the object mode. And the reason why it jumped into low poly is because for the viewport, we don't have any levels active here. So let's just increase these to 2 and we have that pose. But again, if you disable the modifier, you get the original mesh. So that's the astronaut pose, and maybe we can tilt the head a little bit. Something like this. Maybe to the side a little bit. Okay, and let's just select everything. Hold Shift, select the body, press Ctrl P and parent. Now the origin point is right down there, so I don't really like this. So let me tab into the edit mode, alt click this loop, hold Shift S, snap cursor to select it, or maybe even higher up, alt click right here and hold Shift S, snap to select it. You will see that places cursor right inside of the astronaut. So now we can tab out, and now we can select only the body, right click and set origin to 3D cursor. So now when we rotate this, it rotates around the middle. And let's do our quick animation. So let's press Shift A, we'll add a camera. And let's hold Ctrl, Alt and 0 on a numpad. So we place the camera on our viewport. And here we can press N, go to the view settings and enable camera to 3D view. So we can use our viewport controls to position the camera. And I'm looking for something like this, but I want to modify the resolution to 4:3 ratio and create something like that. Maybe let's turn him around a little bit. Okay, and this will be very simple, straightforward animation. I just want him to fly from one edge of the screen to the other and rotate while doing it. But I don't want him to start outside of the bounds, because when you, for example, upload this somewhere, the thumbnail most of the time is generated from the first frame, at least on Dribble or size like that. So I want to start him here. So let's disable camera to view, go to the item menu, and let's enable Y rotation keyframe. So right click and insert single keyframe here, and position as well. And just right click and insert all keyframes for the location. And now we can select this keyframe right here, and we can determine the length of our animation. I think something like 120 frames should be enough, and let's make sure we are at 30 FPS. Let's check out the length of the animation. It should be like 4 seconds of the animation, so maybe it will be even too long, but we'll see. And now let's select this frame right here, press Shift D and duplicate it to 121. So they'll make sure the position is same here and here, and we can do whatever we want inside. So let's move to frame like 40 or 50 maybe, and we can just move him away from the camera bounds and right click and insert keyframes right there. Then we can jump one frame and move him right here and do the same thing, insert keyframes. And then we can select this frame, press Shift D, duplicate it and move it like 15 frames or something, so there's a little pause, and right there it will fly back. So what we have here is kind of like just him flying away. But the problem is decelerating, so we can press A, press T, and choose linear interpolation. So now he will kind of fly around more fluently. So you'll always just see him kind of go through the screen. Now this part right here, let's select this frame right there, press T and choose constant, even though they're one frame next to each other. But for example, if you move this somewhere here, it would still work. But sometimes it caused me glitches, especially when I used motion blur, because the motion blur kind of caught this movement from one side to the other. So what I tend to do is kind of enable render as well. Okay, so that's our little animation, and now let's do something like a rotation. So for example, here he should be rotated like plus 180 degrees. So let's just click here and do plus 180. Right click and insert single keyframe. Okay, and here he should continue the rotation. So we'll select this frame right there, but let's expand this. Let's find only the rotation. That's this one. Press Shift D and duplicate it right there. And let's just copy this rotation. So click here, press Ctrl C, or just hover here and press Ctrl C and go right there. Press Ctrl V and let's do plus another 180. Right click and insert single keyframe. So this should take care of this. So let me see how it works. Nice. Maybe this pause is a little bit too long, so we can just select all of this and move it closer. Okay. And now if you want to preview this, you can press Ctrl B and limit the preview only for camera bounce. And now if we go to render settings, choose cycles, I will go for GPU and enable some denoising and GPU on open image. Let me reduce the samples to something like 128. Now this will be only visible. Now if we make this, it will be only visible here in the viewport. And we can hold Shift S, snap cursor to origin, and let's press Shift A and add the sunlight, for example. Let's rotate it a little bit so we can better see what's happening. And now we get better preview of what's actually happening. And now it's about few materials and most of all lighting. So for example, if you have like good space HDRI, that might help. So let's press Shift A and we'll add a spotlight and press G then Z, move it up. And let's move it somewhere here behind and press Shift T to kind of focus it here on the astronaut, but we'll need to make this stronger, like 1500 or so. Maybe it's too much from the side, so Shift T again to kind of point it the right way. Okay, I like this, and let's make the sunlight a little bit stronger, something like 3. Okay, and maybe a little bit sharper angle, and let's increase the angle a little bit so it's softer, tiny bit. Now let's press Shift A, we'll add mesh plane, press R then X and 90 to rotate, press G then Y and move it back and make it larger, so press S. So we have some backdrop here, some background, and we can actually start to giving this some materials. So go to Materials tab and create a new one here. Let's call this BG on the background, and let's do like really dark space material there. And to create some visual interest, we'll give this some light. So let's hold Shift and right click here to move the cursor. Let's press Shift A and let's add a light and a point light and move it towards the front a little bit. And let's make this really strong, like 500. And let's make it move around a little bit with a little bit larger radius. Now let's give this some color so we have like a nice gradient happening here. Okay, and now for the astronaut, let's give him like a white color and let's make this a little bit more glossy. Let's reduce the roughness a little bit. And for these accessories that might be orange or something, I think they'll look quite good with a lower roughness as well. And for the boots as well. So it'll be really easy to kind of texture them. Just press 3 for face select the bottom faces on the boots. And now hold Ctrl and press plus on a numpad to expand the selection until you reach this part right here. Create a new material slot and let's just pick the orange material here. And there you have it, another material assigned here. And now let's do the same for the gloves. So tab into the edit mode And I will just select these two faces right here and press Ctrl plus several times until I get the whole selection here like this, and just select this new material and hit assign there as well. But we'll need to do that on the other side as well, since we applied the mirror modifier. And that's only because we wanted to use the pose mode in sculpting. If I use the armature, I would keep the symmetry probably. So yeah, something like this, and maybe let's choose the shield here, create the new material, and I think it will look great in gold or something. So let's increase the metallic, let's reduce the roughness. Now let's do color like this, or maybe something like blue or cyan color. Okay, and now it's all about like fine-tuning the lighting, because you can see this is a little bit too dark. Maybe you can place some stars in the back. You can again use HDRI or some image of a nebula, give this some planets, some rockets behind, you know, create some fun little scene. That's totally up to you. Let me just get that glossy material as well. But here I will mostly play with these lights. So for example, the spotlight that creates this nice rim can be colored as well, so we can kind of make this a little bit warmer, for example. And then maybe place an area light here to create additional reflections around. Maybe somewhere here from the side. Let's give this some strength actually. And maybe some color like this, something purple. Okay, and finally you can just go ahead and in the render settings, color management, maybe raise the contrast a little bit and play with the exposure. And don't forget to enable motion blur here. And then just in the output settings, change this to FFmpeg with the MP4 encoding. Choose your folder right there, render animation, and it should work just fine. So that's a little funky astronaut animation for you today. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and again, if you did, please leave that like, and if you're new around here, hit that subscribe. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.